All right, so today we're going to be talking about Serafina and the Black Cloak. Serafina and the Black Cloak is a fantasy book written by Robert Beatty. While the location where events occur is a real place, this book is a fiction fantasy book because the world contains magical powers and animals that act in unreal ways. The setting of this book takes place in America's largest home called Biltmore Estate. It's located in Asheville, North Carolina. This massive mansion is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt and is the backdrop for Serafina, our main character's adventure. Serafina does not live in one of the 35 lavish bedrooms, but rather she lives in the basement and sleeps on a makeshift bed behind the boiler. Serafina is a secret, and she lives a life hidden in the shadows. Her father works at Biltmore, keeping the Edison machine running, and it provides light to Biltmore's important and wealthy guests during their stays. Serafina and her pa both live in the basement, and no one realizes it. Even though they're secretly living there, her father's a good dad to Serafina. He provides, loves, worries for, and even takes care of Serafina, but continuously reminds her and tells her that she needs to remain hidden. Serafina thinks back constantly to what her pa tells her and has told her all her life. They ain't our kind of folk, Sarah. So, with this in mind, she befriends the darkness, moving quickly and quietly when she explores. Serafina's small stature and soft footsteps have allowed her to acquire adept skills necessary for lurking in the darkness. These skills come in handy throughout the book, especially when weird things begin to happen at Biltmore Estate. Children begin to go missing, and then Serafina witnesses it with her own eyes. The young daughter of one of the guests gets taken by a man in a black cloak, and Serafina is determined to solve this mystery. Serafina's brave and courageous personality leads her to befriend the Vanderbilt's young nephew, Braden. She knows that she shouldn't be exposing herself to anyone in the house, especially the owner's nephew, but she senses that he's different. Braden lives with the Vanderbilts because his entire family tragically died in a house fire. Braden has experienced a tremendous trauma in his life, and he doesn't connect with normal people or children his own age. However, he connects with Serafina, and they become best friends throughout the course of the book. The young Master Braden keeps her secret about living in the basement and believes her incredible story about how she saw the little girl go missing. They become a dynamic duo that intend to stop the man in the black cloak from taking any more children. As the story progresses, it leads Serafina into the woods surrounding Biltmore Estate. Established early on, we learned that Serafina was taught not to go into the woods that surround Biltmore Estate because they possess supernatural powers and contain potential evil. Her pa had warned her about this her entire life, and she does show reluctancy to enter the woods, but soon finds solace in it. She already feels like she's one with the darkness, and the woods begin to feel more comfortable than creepy to her. This becomes a pivotal characteristic that leads to understanding where Serafina came from. We learn that her father found her in the woods as a newborn baby and took her in and raised her as his own child. This leads to so many questions that Serafina needs answers to, and as the story unfolds, she does eventually get those answers. Serafina finds her birth mother, and it's an auspicious meeting. Her mother helps her defeat the man in the black cloak, and all the children who were taken are returned to their families. So this is an overview of how the book went. Now I'm going to lead into some strengths and weaknesses. So the first strength of this book that I have to highly commend is the fact that Serafina constantly asks questions and self-reflects. This contributes to her character growth, but it also allows the reader to examine their own existence and ask themselves these questions too, especially for the age group that this is intended for. Some of these questions can be heavy, but this is about the time in their lives that they're beginning to ask themselves these things as well. So let's see, that goes ahead and transitions us into our quote. On page 223, there's a quote that reads, "She stood for a long time thinking about why she was alive and why the others weren't. She asked herself again, we're going to go ahead and try that again. She stood for a long time thinking about why she was alive and the others weren't. And she asked herself again, was she good or was she evil? She had been born in and lived in the world of darkness, but which side was she on, darkness or light? She looked up at the stars. She didn't know what she was or how she got that way, but she knew what she wanted to be. She wanted to be good. She wanted to save Brayden and the other children who were still alive. She wanted to protect Biltmore. She thought about the inscription on the base of the Stone Angel's pedestal. Our character isn't defined by the battles we win or lose, but by the battles we dare to fight. Standing in the forest at that moment, that's when she chose to believe. It was true that she was a creature of the night, but she would decide for herself what that meant. I really like this quote because it's in this coming of age story. This is a moment where Serafina is confronted with the reality that she came from these woods that are supposedly evil, but she's not evil, and she's asking herself, is she or is she not? And she decides she's not evil. She wants to be good. It kind of sends the message to the readers that you can be whatever you want to be. Regardless of where you came from, you get to choose who you are and what your journey entails. So another strength of this book is the challenging vocabulary it has in it. I like to look words up that I don't know, and there was a handful of words that I had to stop reading to look up to get the full grasp of the ideas that were being presented. Some of the words include words such as effluence, trundling, asunder, and brindled. Those are words that I came across that I wasn't sure what they meant, and it was a breath of fresh air to be able to pick up something new from a book that I'm reading. So some people might call it a weakness, using vocabulary that they don't know in a book, but I call it a strength because it encourages me and other readers to look them up and expand your vocabulary. A weakness I did come across in the book, I think that they didn't explore the Biltmore estate as much as they could have. The Biltmore Estate is a grandiose home with lots to offer. While it's described sometimes, Serafina only visits a handful of places like the basement, the ballroom, the winter garden, and briefly Brayden's bedroom. Another strength is that it inspired me to look up more about Biltmore Estate. Learning that it was a real place, I was inspired and I wanted to see what it looked like. It's amazing, and it's a huge, grand home. So it was awesome that I got to learn more about Biltmore Estate's legacy. Another weakness, it occasionally lacks depth or half-heartedly solves problems, but it is intended for 6th to 8th graders, so it does make it passable. The issues occur especially near the end after the crazy journey that Serafina goes through. Serafina's dad is present in the end, but borderline left out of the resolution, which is a little weird to me. Also, the Vanderbilts offer to bring beds to the basement for Serafina and her dad, but I feel like that's really silly because, as we mentioned, Biltmore Estate has like 35 bedrooms. Like, why would they not let them move into one of the bedrooms? I feel like that's one of my critical things about this book, that I didn't quite like how it resolved the ending. However, another strength would be I think that was it. Overall, though, the strength of this book is the fact that the story is really consistent. There's definitely personal growth through the characters, especially Serafina. And I think that leads into the idea that this is absolutely age appropriate. It's age appropriate because through Serafina's journey and self-reflection, she's finding herself. Readers in this age range are doing the same exact thing that she's doing, in terms of wondering who they are and why they're there and what they're about. They're beginning to take in the larger world around them, and they're beginning to see the good as well as the bad things in the world. There is social class commentary in this book, like for example when her father comments, "Oh, they ain't our kind of folks, Sarah." And whether people think that it's a good or a bad thing, young people in this age range from 11 to 13 are exposed to social classes, and they begin to develop an understanding of where they believe that they fit into this. Through this book, there is complex emotional development, the questioning and understanding of their own feelings. Through this book, the characters, especially Serafina, experiences growing empathy for other people, places, and entities. She experiences the need and respect of keeping secrets and expecting her secrets to also be kept. Like when Brayden didn't rat her out to his uncle about Serafina and her pa living in the basement, Serafina was overjoyed, and her ties and her faith in Brayden grew stronger. There's social development, such as Serafina being 12 years old and she begins to establish her identity outside of her little family. That's her and her pa. Through the adventure Serafina experiences, she becomes of the larger world around her and what it's capable of and what she's capable of. There's cognitive development as well. Serafina's cognitive growth throughout the story is evident. She becomes invested in solving this mystery of the man in the black cloak, and her perception is very sharp. Her logical processes allow her to connect the dots, leading to a victory against the black cloak. As far as classroom appropriateness, I would definitely read this book to a group of 5th to 8th graders. I think it's a dynamic book that covers a dynamic range of developmental experiences. Students from 5th to 8th grade would begin to question their lives just as Serafina has throughout the entirety of the book. And I think that's really critical in this time frame where students or young people in general are beginning to grow. As far as activities that I would use for this book, I think that I would, there's 2 that I can think of. The first one would be like a creative writing activity where I would challenge the students to rewrite a chapter or rewrite the ending. This is a creative book full of creative twists and turns, and it's fun to make predictions at times for what's going to happen next in the next chapter. But it also at times feels like it lacks an appropriate answer to certain situations. So I would challenge the students to come up with alternate endings or solutions to a part or a chapter of the book and provide that alternate story. I would also, for a secondary activity, I would encourage the students to do a journal entry of reflection, because throughout the entirety of this book, Serafina is always asking herself self-reflecting questions. I would encourage students to ask themselves some of those questions as well and relate it to similar experiences that maybe Serafina came across, or ways that they have faced adversity and overcame it as well. As far as a book as a whole, I would absolutely recommend this book, and I think that I would love to have not just this book, but all 4 of these books in my classroom to complete the series, and I would encourage my students to read it because this fantasy book does touch upon many things that students in this age range are experiencing, so I think it's a winner overall. Okay, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed my book review. See you later. Bye.